Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Marnie Feuerman, and I'm a certified EFT supervisor and the director for the South Florida community for EFT. And I'm really excited to be hosting a new training. And I have the trainers here that I enlisted in doing this fantastic training on identifying abuse in relationships, both for individual and couples. And when I heard about the training and then I saw the training, I thought I've got to get this out to more therapists because it's such needed information. So I am here with Krasi Kirova and Katie Shelsis. Like, what had you both putting this training together to begin with?
Because I identify a huge gap in our profession as therapists and psychologists in our understanding of the complexity and the patterns of coercive control and emotional abuse in relationships. It's often very invisible and difficult to spot. And it's particularly prevalent, I think, in the work of couples therapists as well, because it can easily hide behind conflict, behind misunderstandings, and behind difficulties communicating when in fact the dynamic is very much one of emotional abuse.
I'm an ISEF certified emotionally focused therapist and supervisor, and I was talking with a colleague of mine at school who's a police officer here in Australia who works in domestic and family violence. And her insights into her side of this job prompted me to say, "Oh, Annie, we need to do something together to help therapists understand what police know about this issue." And so we were preparing a training together, which we ran a couple of years ago. And in preparing, I came across Krasi's material. And then Krasi, being a phenomenally passionate lifelong learner, heard about the training and reached out to me. And so it was incredibly serendipitous that I feel blessed as a couples therapist to have been exposed to these wonderful people who have known things that I was not taught in my undergraduate psych degree, in my postgraduate psych degree, or in my really world-class couples therapy training. I think EFT is the most wonderful model for working with couples.
Right.
It's beautiful. I live and breathe it. And this is not something I learned. And so I think this is a wonderful addition to learning in EFT. It is complementary to the model to understand this
Mhm.
stuff. It is the way that we should be caring for our clients, and it's so powerful, I think, and liberating for the therapist to understand how to make assessment of more subtle patterns of coercive control and emotional abuse so that you can feel confident about pursuing an attachment-based path of couples therapy or referring the people in front of you to another treatment plan that will care for them well.
And you're right that this stuff is really missing in the education that we get, in all the trainings that we get. And I know in a lot of models, any couples therapy approach where they're treating a lot of issues as mutual reinforcing cycles or just a communication problem that again is mutual. And I know that there's some danger with that when we are talking about the subtle or psychological coercive control situation. So can you both maybe talk a little bit about that side of things?
I think one of the places where I hear a lot of the information of people's experiences, particularly in couples therapies, I run workshops for women who are experiencing emotional abuse, and this is primarily the clientele that I see, victim survivors. And most of them at some point have attended couples therapy. And so I hear a lot of what it has been like for them when it hasn't been picked up, which it hasn't been in most cases. It can be incredibly harmful, even just using the neutralizing kind of mutual language that is the hallmark of couples therapy for particularly good reasons. But what it does in a relationship that is very highly skewed and there is already a power imbalance in that relationship is that it places responsibility equally on both people, and it really invalidates the victim's experience. It pretty much provides weapon and ammunition to an abuser when
Mm.
there is a person such as a therapist who is a person in an authority position who should be able to see it and they don't see it. So I think that can be particularly harmful in the experience. And I have had many people tell me if only they had named it, all they needed to do is name it and seen it, and that would have allowed me, that would have given me permission to see it as well. But because they didn't, I questioned even more my experience.
And then victimized by the therapist, which I'm sure that's a well-meaning
Yes.
Yeah.
therapist, but again, like we're talking about, it's so missed.
Look, Money, you've seen our training, right? So we talk about this in the training that, first of all, we both have some lived experience of being involved in family systems where there have been patterns of abuse. And for me, particularly, that was something that really I only became aware of later in my life on reflection, right? And in talking with my own mother, and we've really only been able to do that after my father has passed away. We've sort of realized some of the patterns that
Mhm.
were there, and so that sits close to the bone, right? That's right at home in my family, in my nervous system. And also, as a relationship therapist, I share in the training feedback that I've received from clients, which was incredibly humbling and really, kind of hard to talk about because maybe makes me feel like a bit of a failure as a couples therapist, really.
Mhm.
Um, but has been thankfully an opportunity for learning to say, wow, I've had the best trainers, the best supervisors, and I missed this.
Mhm.
And if I can find the courage to come and say that honestly, which is something we model to each other in EFT, and I love that we try to make it safe to own our mistakes and model that for our clients because we know that actually mistakes are how we learn and they're how we come closer and they're how we rebuild safe connection, right? And so if we can do that, if I can talk honestly about, yeah, I got this wrong, and this is how, and this is what I've been learning since, and I'm still learning, then hopefully that gives other people courage to look at their cases a little differently, and hopefully it removes the shame and the hiding for all of us. Neither of us have anything against EFT or other mutuality models of couples therapy. In fact, we love
Right.
them. EFT is 95% of my practice, with individuals and couples. We're just saying in your assessment, check first that you have a safe system in which to apply a mutuality model. And when you know you have a safe system, go forward with confidence and do that because it is an excellent model for a safe relational system. It's just when there's unsafety
Right.
that it's going to create difficulty. Yeah.
This is about proper assessment, right? It's part of the treatment plan, decision making, safety, all of that stuff. So we're pausing to pivot to do that. And when it's not physical abuse, we
Yes.
don't pick up on it so easily. Both the people that are coming in with this problem, sometimes they don't even know. They're not aware that it is. And it's not named, or they don't know what's going on. They just know they don't feel right. They don't feel safe. There's fear. And then we have
Mm.
therapists who some of them maybe pick up on it a bit, but certainly not enough because what you're describing is still so problematic in our field. We're not as good as we should be about picking up those subtle signs, the psychological, the emotional. For a therapist to not have the skills, maybe you can speak a little bit to what happens there. How is that maybe even more dangerous for a client in this circumstance?
We had an Australian big study on coercive control a few years ago that about 62% of people did not realize they were experiencing abuse while they were in the relationship. So if people don't realize it, they're not going to tell us. It sort of falls, the responsibility as well falls on us as therapists to be looking out for signs and to be interpreting correctly the dynamic of what's playing out in front of us. So the dangers are that if our client doesn't see it and we don't see it, it just becomes unnamed and hidden for a lot longer. It means that if they are maybe considering a separation or they're considering their next steps, then us not seeing it or kind of playing into that dynamic inadvertently means that we prolong that experience for them as well. It means even possibly increasing risk for them because rather than them making safety plans, they're trying to work out a relationship that is not safe for them. It means that rather than them strengthening their self and perspective, which is what they need from therapy, instead we are undermining that strength and perspective.
Right, making it worse when
Yeah.
obviously we're there to be helpful.
Point, Mani, that you made before about physical violence, I think is really important because most of us, when we went through our programs, were taught about assessment of physical violence. Ask about that. Krasi and I've talked about a particular assessment here in Australia that told us to look out for choking, right?
Oh, no.
But that, Krasi, you will remember the stats.
Physical violence on average is present in about 50 or just under 50% of all instances of relationship abuse, whereas emotional and psychological abuse is virtually always present. And also, we currently have a very much incident-based model. Family violence is being looked at as occasional incidents, whereas we are really turning towards a pattern-based model, which is putting together all the pieces of the puzzle, and almost always they're much more emotional and psychological rather than having those physical aspects as well.
I'm so glad that you both are doing this. And the best thing, though, which I want everyone to realize, is that you are going to explain to therapists how to actually
Yes.
work with these people, what to say, how to do it, how to pivot if you need to, what to say to the person that's more the victim in the circumstance and the person who is more the perpetrator. If people want answers to all of those questions for how to work with this, please join us. This training is going to be on September 17th and 18th. So that's coming up in just a few months. And you can get more information on our website, which is www.southfloridaeft.com. So we hope that you'll join us for this wonderful training on identifying abuse. We'll see you then.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mani.